faithfully delivering value by interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally here with Book Talk. Today we're interpreting the book Biography of Li Hongzhang, authored by one of China's modern famous thinkers and a leader of the Hundred Days Reform. Liang Qichao and Yang San are dead. No more Su Chao. Mr. Lier is a traitor. This is a widely circulated couplet from the late Qing Dynasty. In the first line, Yang San was a Peking opera master, skilled in playing the clown role of Su Chao. After Yang San died, there were no outstanding Su Chao actors left. In the second line, Li refers to late Qing minister Li Hongzhang. He was the second child, so-called Mr. Li. So how did Mr. Lier become a traitor? It turns out that in 1895, the Qing government signed the humiliating Treaty of Shimonoseki with Japan, forced to cede territory and pay reparations. When the news came, public anger surged. Li Hongzhang, who led the negotiations for the Qing, became the target of criticism. This couplet emerged under such circumstances. Though Yang San and Li Hongzhang had no direct link, the couplet's meaning is clear. It satirizes Li Hongzhang as the top traitor, with the clown cursing why he hasn't died yet. No, but this isn't the only view of Li Hongzhang by later generations. While some blame him for harming the nation and people, others call him the patchwork craftsman of the late Qing, thinking without him, the Qing Dynasty, like a crumbling house, would have collapsed sooner. In fact, opinions on Li Hongzhang are mixed, and one view can't be ignored. He's the modern thinker and reform movement leader Liang Qichao. 1901. In November, Li Hongzhang passed away. 2 months later, Liang Qichao completed Liang Chang's biography. Such a hastily written piece shouldn't hold up, but this book endured and became Liang Qichao's masterpiece. New culture movement leaders Hu Shi and Lu Chun, modern diplomat Wellington Koo, historian Tang Degang, all praised biography of Li Hongzhang highly. Even now, with more accurate and complete Li Hongzhang biographies published, this book still charms. This ties to Liang Qichao's status in modern Chinese history, but more crucially, Liang himself witnessed that era and was caught in political turmoil. So he had firsthand experience of late Qing officialdom, allowing Liang to evaluate Liang Cheng's actions from specific context, neither overpraising nor harshly criticizing. This is the secret to the biography's enduring appeal, something later scholars relying on archives alone can't match. Perhaps it lies right here. So next, I'll break this book down into 3 parts for interpretation. Part 1. Li Hongzhang's life trajectory of a high start and low end. Part 2. Liang Qichao's 3 evaluations of Li Hongzhang's life work.
Part 3. Liang Qichao's writing motivation and the value of this book.
All right, now let's discuss Part 1. Li Hongzhang's life trajectory of a high start and low end. Liang Qichao divided Liang Cheng's life into 2 phases, a high start and a low end. The first phase occupied most of his lifetime, during which Li was always on an upward trajectory. And the second phase focuses on his last 15 years, during which Liang Zhang suffered many setbacks. In Liang Qichao's words, he almost reached a dead end. First, I'll talk about the first phase. On the 5th day of the first lunar month in the 3rd year of Daguang, which is February 15th, 1823, Li Hongzhang was born in Hefei, Anhui. His courtesy name was Zifu, and his pseudonym was Shao Quan. At age 22, he passed the provincial examination to become a juren, and at 25, he became a jinshi and entered the Hanlin Academy for Advanced Studies. You know, during the Ming and Qing dynasties, many people spent their entire lives taking imperial exams without even becoming a Chu Chai. But Li Hongzhang, at a young age, was selected for the Hanlin Academy. One could say he achieved success early. No wonder he was arrogant. Of course, being arrogant is one thing. For young men like Li Hongzhang, wanting to rise in the officialdom required gradual tempering. However, the rapid changes in circumstances gave him an opportunity to rise quickly. In 1851, Hung Shuquan, Yang Qichao and others launched the Taiping Rebellion in Jinqing, Guangxi. Within just 2 or 3 years, the Taiping army swept across most of China and established their capital in Nanjing, rivaling the Qing Dynasty. Because the military forces the court relied on, the 8 banners and Green Standard Army, were easily defeated, they had to allow provinces to organize local militias, known as Tuanlian, to resist the Taiping army.
Among them, the Qing army trained by Zheng Guofan in Hunan was the most combat effective, so the Qing government appointed Zheng Guofan as governor-general of Liangzhang to suppress the Taiping rebellion with full force.
While in Beijing, Li Hongzhang studied under Zhang Guofan, forming a teacher-student relationship. Thus, Li Hongzhang joined Zhang Guofan as an advisor. In 1860, the Taiping army swept through Zhengnan, captured Suzhou and Shangzhou, and threatened Shanghai. The court panicked and ordered Zhang Guofan to send capable men to defend Shanghai. Zhang Guofan recommended Li Hongzhang. Li first returned to his hometown in Anhua to organize a militia. Since its officers and soldiers mostly came from the Zhenghuai region, it was called the Huai Army. In 1862, Li Hongzhang was appointed governor of Jiangsu and led 8,000 Huai army troops to Shanghai. After 2 years of fierce fighting, the Huai army not only defended Shanghai but also recaptured key cities like Zhenjiang, Changzhou, and Suzhou. This played a supporting role in the Xiong army's final capture of Nanjing and elimination of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. Liang Qichao noted that retaking Jiangnan was the starting point of Li Hongzhang's meteoric rise. This was because Jiangnan, known as the empire's wealthiest region, had always been crucial for tax revenue. By establishing himself here, Li gained immense economic and social resources. In fact, his later initiatives, like crushing the Neon Rebellion peasant forces in North China, promoting the Westernization movement, building factories, upgrading Huai army weapons, and establishing the Baiyang fleet, were largely funded from Jiangnan. By the numbers, Li became governor-general of Liangzhang at 43, Huguang at 45, and Zili at 48. Each position held immense power, marking his ambitious peak, especially as Zili governor, overseeing the capital region Hebei, a post he held for nearly 24 years with deep imperial trust. Concurrently, as northern minister overseeing westernization around the Bohai Sea, he led the movement during the Tongji and Guangxu reigns. Through westernizers' efforts, the Qing healed Civil War wounds while adopting Western tech, creating thriving prosperity. Contemporaries called this era the Tongji Restoration. Alongside figures like Zhang Guofan and Zhuo Zongtang, Li became a restoration hero, his power and prestige peaking here. But his peaks precede falls. When history's hand reached the late 19th century, Li entered his second phase, and his westernization project neared collapse. In 1894, the First Sino-Japanese War erupted. Pre-war, both court and public held high hopes. Yet the outcome? Qing forces suffered devastating defeats at sea and on land. The Bian fleet, touted as Asia's finest, was annihilated. The modern armed Huai army collapsed without meaningful resistance, declaring the westernization movement bankrupt. Post-war, Li represented the Qing in negotiations, forced to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki, ceding Taiwan and Liaodong Peninsula, while paying 200 million silver taels. News sparked nationwide fury, making Li the target of outrage. Shanghai newspapers denounced him as a traitorous national betrayer. That couplet we mentioned at the start, "Young Sun is dead, no Su Cho, Mr. Lier is a traitor," spread through newspapers, and the Qing government used this to shift all blame onto Li Hongzhang, dismissing him from office. He was dismissed from positions like Governor-General of Zili and Northern Minister, sent off to Shandong to manage the Yellow River. Li Hongzhang was sidelined for 4 or 5 years. Until late 1899, the Qing government appointed him as Governor-General of Liangguan, effectively reassigning him to significant responsibility. Soon after, the Qing government faced a major crisis, and once again, Li Hongzhang stepped in to handle it. In 1900, the Eight-Nation Alliance captured Beijing, and Empress Dowager Cixi fled with Emperor Guangxu. Out of desperation, the old Empress Dowager had to call on Li Hongzhang again to negotiate with the foreigners. The final Boxer Protocol stipulated that the Qing government pay the powers 450 million silver taels, with interest totaling up to 1 billion.
The powers also gained the right to station troops in the Beijing-Tianjin area, making it the most humiliating treaty unprecedented in history.
As the negotiator, Li Hongzhang was naturally vilified by both court and public. By then, he was elderly and exhausted. On November 7, 1901, Li Hongzhang died at age 79, ending his life of a high start and low end. Here, Liang Qichao outlined the two phases of Li Hongzhang's life. It can be seen that for most of his life, Li was on an upward path, reaching the pinnacle of power until the Sino-Japanese War defeat. He plummeted from peak to trough, ultimately passing away amidst widespread criticism. How was such a stark contrast created? In the book, Liang Qichao offers his explanation, specifically his three summarized evaluations of Li Hongzhang's life work. The first evaluation: he was obsessed with traditional political scheming, but ignorant of modern diplomacy. Examining Li Hongzhang's life trajectory reveals a clear distinction between earlier and later periods. In the first phase, Li suppressed peasant uprisings and promoted westernization, truly a capable official for the Qing. But in the second phase, the astute Viceroy Li suddenly became an aged, confused, and indecisive bureaucrat. Similarly, how could one person change so drastically?
Liang Qichao's explanation is that in the first phase, whether suppressing the Taiping Rebellion or the Neon Rebellion, even the westernization movement, learning from the West, primarily dealt with domestic affairs, where Li, well-versed in traditional politics, excelled.
For example, take Li Hongzhang's handling of the Suzhou surrender massacre. In November 1863, Cheng Shuiji, a famous Huai army general, besieged Suzhou.
Cornered and desperate, the defending Taiping rebels offered to surrender on condition their safety was guaranteed.
Cheng Shuiji agreed, and British Commander Charles Gordon of the ever-victorious army personally guaranteed their safety, after which the rebels surrendered their weapons. But secretly, Cheng and Li Hongzhang plotted. Li hosted a banquet for the rebel generals and had them killed while they were drinking. Simultaneously, the Huai army slaughtered large numbers of unarmed Taiping soldiers. This became the infamous Suzhou surrender massacre. And afterward, Gordon furiously denounced Li Hongzhang for betraying their word. But to Li, with over 100,000 surrendered rebels hard to control, eliminating them was a practical battlefield decision with historical precedence, almost justified. Liang Qichao believed this showed Li was a master schemer. Another incident further reveals his cunning. After capturing Suzhou, the Taiping capital, Tianjin lost its protective barrier. The Qing court repeatedly ordered the Huai army to attack it swiftly. But Li delayed endlessly, knowing Shang army general Zhang Guoquan, Zhen Gofan's brother, guarding the siege hated rivals stealing credit. So despite the Shang army's struggles and imperial pressure, Li refused to move. This shows Li's grasp of bureaucratic psychology and relationship management. Later, suppressing the Neon Rebellion and promoting westernization required balancing interests across provinces, departments, and factions. Li's ability to placate all sides stemmed directly from his political finesse. The problem? This convoluted scheming operated on completely different logic than diplomacy. Thus, facing Japan's rise, Li's diplomatic ignorance led to repeated errors. After the Meiji Restoration, Japan's rapid growth fueled ambitions to annex Korea, Qing's vassal state, yet Li remained unalarmed. In 1872, during a Japan-Korea dispute, Japan suggested Qing handle it. Li, overseeing foreign affairs, replied, "We don't interfere in Korea's governance." 3 years later, When another dispute arose, he repeated this stance. Japan then forced Korea to sign the Treaty of Ganghwa, declaring Korea an independent nation. Japan gained rights in Korea equal to Qing China, severely weakening Qing's suzerain status and paving the way for Japan's large-scale expansion into Korea. This provided legal justification. By 1882, when internal turmoil struck Korea and the royal family sought aid, Li Hongzhang sent troops. Japan immediately demanded matching rights to station troops, creating a standoff between Qing and Japanese, a status of divide between Qing and Japanese forces in Korea. All this occurred precisely because Li's ambiguous attitude gave Japan opportunities.
Since it happened, how to contain Japan?
At this critical moment, Li's diplomatic ignorance led to disaster. Knowing Qing couldn't match post-Meiji Japan, he resorted to traditional political scheming, using barbarians to control barbarians, allying with some powers against others. Li proposed Britain and Russia mediate the Sino-Japanese conflict. Britain responded weakly. Russia seized the chance to demand Qing buy its arms and grant railway rights in Manchuria, all of which Li agreed to. Yet during the Sino-Japanese War, Russia stayed neutral, only intervening afterward to force Japan to return Liaodong Peninsula per the Treaty of Shimonoseki. Russia. This wasn't out of justice. They wanted payback.
Sure enough, under Russian pressure, Li signed the secret Sino-Russian Treaty, letting Russia infiltrate Manchuria, triggering a chain reaction that nearly destroyed China.
Liang Qichao noted that before the war, Western powers focused only on missionary work and trade, not partitioning China. Post-war, Li negotiated the Treaty of Shimonoseki, forcing Qing to cede Taiwan and Liaodong while paying 200 million silver taels.
The news sparked nationwide fury, making Li the target of outrage.
Shanghai newspapers denounced him as a traitorous national betrayer. That couplet, Yang San dead, no Su Cho, Mr. Li heir is a traitor, spread through papers, letting Qing shift all blame to Li and dismiss him. He was stripped of titles like Jili governor and northern minister, exiled to manage the Yellow River in Shandong, sidelined for years. Until the end of 1899, the Qing government appointed him as Governor General of Liangguan, effectively reassigning him to significant responsibility.
Soon after, the Qing government faced a major crisis, and once again, Li Hongzhang stepped in to handle it.
In 1900, the Eight-Nation Alliance captured Beijing, and Empress Dowager Cixi fled with Emperor Guangxu. Out of desperation, the old Empress Dowager had to call on Li Hongzhang again to negotiate with the foreigners. The final Boxer Protocol stipulated that the Qing government pay the powers 450 million silver taels, with interest totaling up to 1 billion. The powers also gained the right to station troops in the Beijing-Tianjin area, making it the most humiliating treaty unprecedented in history. As the negotiator, Li Hongzhang was naturally vilified by both court and public. By then, he was elderly and exhausted. On November 7, 1901, Li Hongzhang died at age 79, ending his life of a high start and low end. Here, Liang Qichao outlined the two phases of Liang Zhang's life. It can be seen that for most of his life, Li was on an upward path, reaching the pinnacle of power until the Sino-Japanese War defeat. He plummeted from peak to trough, ultimately passing away amidst widespread criticism. How was such a stark contrast created? In the book, Liang Qichao offers his explanation, specifically his 3 summarized evaluations of Liang Zhang's life work. The first evaluation: he was obsessed with traditional political scheming but ignorant of modern diplomacy. Examining Li Hongzhang's life trajectory reveals a clear distinction between earlier and later periods. In the first phase, Li suppressed peasant uprisings and promoted westernization, truly a capable official for the Qing. But in the second phase, the astute Viceroy Li suddenly became an aged, confused, and indecisive bureaucrat. Similarly, how could one person change so drastically? Liang Qichao's explanation is that in the first phase, whether suppressing the Taiping Rebellion or the Neon Rebellion, even the westernization movement, learning from the West, primarily dealt with domestic affairs, where Li, well-versed in traditional politics, excelled. For example, take Li Hongzhang's handling of the Suzhou surrender massacre. In November 1863, Sheng Shuiqi, a famous Hui army general, besieged Suzhou.
Cornered and desperate, the defending Taiping rebels offered to surrender on condition their safety was guaranteed.
Sheng Shuiqi agreed, and British commander Charles Gordon of the ever-victorious army personally guaranteed their safety, after which the rebels surrendered their weapons. But
Who would have thought? Sheng Shuiqi and Li Hongzhang plotted together. Li hosted a banquet for Taiping generals and killed them while they were drunk. At the same time, the Hui army slaughtered large numbers of unarmed Taiping soldiers. This became the infamous Suzhou surrender massacre.
afterward, Gordon furiously denounced Li Hongzhang for betraying their word. But to Li, with over 100,000 surrendered rebels hard to control, eliminating them was a practical battlefield decision with historical precedents. Almost justified. Liang Qichao believed this showed Li was a master schemer. Another incident further reveals his cunning. After capturing Suzhou, the Taiping capital Tianjin lost its protective barrier. The Qing court repeatedly ordered the Hua army to attack it swiftly, but Li delayed endlessly. Knowing Qing army general Zheng Guoquan, Zheng Guofan's brother, guarding the siege hated rivals stealing credit. So despite the Qing army's struggles and imperial pressure, Li refused to move. This shows Li's grasp of bureaucratic psychology and relationship management. Later, suppressing the Neon Rebellion and promoting westernization required balancing interests across provinces, departments, and factions.
Li's ability to placate all sides stemmed directly from his political finesse.
The problem? This convoluted scheming operated on completely different logic than diplomacy. Thus, facing Japan's rise, Li's diplomatic ignorance led to repeated errors. After the Meiji Restoration, Japan's rapid growth fueled ambitions to annex Korea, Qing's vassal state, yet Li remained unalarmed. In 1872, during a Japan-Korea dispute, Japan suggested Qing handle it. Li, overseeing foreign affairs, replied, "We don't interfere in Korea's governance." 3 years later, when another dispute arose, he repeated this stance. Japan then forced Korea to sign the Treaty of Ganhwa, declaring Korea an independent nation. Japan gained rights in Korea equal to Qing China, severely weakening Qing's suzerain status and paving the way for Japan's large-scale expansion into Korea. This provided legal justification. By 1882, when internal turmoil struck Korea and the royal family sought aid, Li Hongzhang sent troops.
Japan immediately demanded matching rights to station troops, creating a standoff between Qing and Japanese forces in Korea. All this occurred precisely because Li Hongzhang's ambiguous attitude created opportunities for Japan.
Since it happened, how to contain Japan. At this critical moment, Li's diplomatic ignorance led to disaster. Knowing Qing couldn't match post-Meiji Japan, he resorted to traditional political scheming, using barbarians to control barbarians, allying with some powers against others. Li proposed Britain and Russia mediate the Sino-Japanese conflict. Button responded weakly. Russia demanded Qing buy its arms and grant Manchurian railway rights, all of which Li accepted. Building on this, Liang Qichao offered his third and most fundamental evaluation of this historical figure. Li Hongzhang was a hero shaped by circumstances, not one who shaped circumstances. The circumstances-shaped hero adapts to existing conditions to achieve within given constraints. But that's his limit. He couldn't transcend circumstances to forge new paths for the decaying empire. 2 factors constrained Li's capabilities. First, objective constraints. Li's actual power was quite limited. Both during and after his life, some called Li a powerful minister dominating the court. Liang Qichao disagreed entirely. He noted that Qing's absolute monarchy concentrated power with the emperor, making powerful ministers unlikely. Since Emperor Yangzheng, real power shifted to the Grand Council, ministers acting as imperial secretaries transmitting edicts. Only as Grand Council ministers could one join the core decision-making circle. Li served as governor general, of Huguang, Liangzhang, Zili, and Liangguang. Impressive titles, yet never entered the Grand Council. Without even being an imperial secretary, he remained merely a regional governor.
Powerful minister?
Liang deemed him unqualified. Qing's power structure had another peculiarity. Manchu rulers distrusted Han ministers, constantly guarding against their influence. Even during the Taiping Rebellion, when Han ministers like Zheng Gufan and Li were indispensable, Manchu nobles were placed above them for control. Once the situation improved, the Qing government rushed to reappoint Manchu ministers to weaken Han ministers' power. By the mid-Guanxi period, the Grand Council was largely controlled by Manchu ministers. In this context, Li Hongzhang's actual power was very limited. Often he just followed orders, like opposing the 1900 war decision from the start, but the court ignored him. And yet, after Qing's defeat, he still had to negotiate unequal treaties with the powers. Who else? He dealt with foreigners most.
If not him, who'd bear the traitor label?
Ultimately, as a subject under autocratic rule, Li's maneuvering room depended entirely on the ruler. Liang Qichao clarified this wasn't defending Li, but reminding readers of the late Qing government's disastrous policies. Li bears responsibility, but not all blame. So if he'd controlled everything, could reforms have changed China's fate? Sadly, no. This leads to subjective constraints on his abilities. As mentioned earlier, Li's understanding of the West was shallow. He saw their wealth but not its roots, dooming his efforts to transform China. Take the Boxer Rebellion. When the Eight-Nation Alliance invaded, Qing ordered regional governors to defend Beijing. As Liangguan governor, Li refused. Instead, he allied with southern governors to compromise with foreigners, creating the Southeast Mutual Protection, sparing the South from war. This certainly benefited the nation and people. But Liang believed Li should have gone further, using his troops to trial Western-style governance in Liangguang, pioneering China's political modernization. Clearly, Li lacked both the courage and vision for this. Thus, Liang concluded, figures like him abound in Chinese history, heroes but ordinary ones. Synthesizing these three evaluations, we outline Liang's overall view of Li Hongzhang. A man capable of achieving within circumstances, yet narrow vision, shallow knowledge, and constrained power in an autocracy made him unable to transform circumstances or national destiny. This is Li Hongzhang's personal tragedy, and also the tragedy of the late Qing era. At this point, we've covered most of the main content of the biography of Li Hongzhang. But after all, this is a century-old work. How should we view its value today? Part 3, Liang Qichao's writing context and the book's value. I'll address this now. Liang Qichao authored voluminous works. His Yinbing Room collection, compiling most writings, exceeds 14 million characters. By comparison, the tens of thousands character biography of Li Hongzhang is but a drop in the ocean. Yet this drop is crucial for understanding Liang Qichao's ideological evolution. Because after writing this biography, Liang's political thought underwent a major shift, rooted in the Hundred Days Reform's failure. In September 1898, conservatives led by Empress Dowager Qixi staged a coup, imprisoning Emperor Guangxu and arresting reformist leaders. The Hundred Days Reform collapsed after just over 100 days. Reform leaders like Kan Yue and Liang Qichao fled to Japan. In Japan, Liang taught himself Japanese, overcoming the language barrier to read local publications, opening new horizons. Since the Meiji Restoration, Japan had translated countless Western works on politics, economics, philosophy, history, and more. Liang read voraciously, reflecting deeply on his past political views through lived experience. During the Reform, Liang advocated enlightening citizens, expanding civil rights, and political change. His moderate approach sought to gradually transform Qing autocracy into a constitutional monarchy, a classic reformist stance shared by most. But the reform's failure made Liang realize, against powerful conservatives, reformism was futile as the westernization movement's fate proved. Look, Li Hongzhang introduced foreign tech, built modern armies, developed industry. His Western learning attitude was proactive, Yet the Sino-Japanese War instantly exposed the Qing, still a poor, backward empire crumbling under pressure. The flaw? Westernizers merely patched the Qing's crumbling house with foreign tech. They had neither the guts nor the insight to fundamentally transform it. Li Hongzhang himself admitted that his lifelong westernization efforts were just patching holes wherever they popped up. On the surface, it looks okay, but inside, that house is still the same. Its materials rotted through long ago. This attitude doomed the westernization faction from ever leading China to prosperity. Liang Qichao used Li Hongzhang's rise and fall fate to reveal a truth. Reform within the old political framework just ain't gonna work. That goes for the westernization faction and the reformists, too. So from this angle, the biography of Li Hongzhang is Liang Qichao's political farewell to reformism and hello to revolution. Probably no accident. When this book came out in 1902, Liang was all chummy with Sun Yat-sen and other Japan-based revolutionaries while drifting apart from his mentor Kang Youwei. During that time, Liang flipped on Pang Youwei's reform by invoking the past idea and started pushing destructionism. So, what's destructionism? Oh, it means using fierce revolutionary tactics, bloodshed and all, to smash autocracy and build democracy. To pull off destructionism, you can't just rely on the masses. You need heroes to swoop in and save the day. And that brings us to the hero-centric view of history Liang picked up in Japan. Back in the mid-19th century, British thinker Thomas Carlyle said that when times get tough, a super-skilled hero pops up to lead folks through it and kick off a new era. So yeah, history is made by heroes, and everyone ought to worship and follow them. That's the hero-centric view for you. After Carlyle's works hit Japan, they caused a big stir. Japanese cultural bigwigs like Tokutomi Soho, Nitobe Inazo, and Natsume Soseki were all over this hero worship stuff. Japanese historian Fukuda and Minami even wrote Principles of History to dig into heroes and current events. Following Carlyle, Fukuda and Minami said history is a stage for heroes. They make it happen and push progress forward. Liang Qichao read Principles of History, and wow, it blew his mind. He realized that traditional Chinese histories, like the 24 histories, are all emperor-focused. Just royal family trees, really. But the hero-centric view, it says heroes can be emperors, prophets, soldiers, scholars, you name it. This breaks the emperor's monopoly over historical narratives. Liang Qichao further divided heroes into two types: those shaped by circumstances and those who create circumstances, as mentioned earlier. Liang pointed out that when a nation faces ordinary crises, heroes shaped by circumstances suffice.
But when facing existential threats like China's partition by foreign powers, heroes who create circumstances are essential.
By this standard, Li Hongzhang was inadequate. He failed to rescue China and worsen the crisis through errors. Thus Liang lamented, "I admire Lie's talent, regret his limited insight, and mourn his circumstances," meaning he respected Li's ability, pitied his cognitive limits, and mourned his plight in later years. So what defined Liang's ideal great hero? His models were German Chancellor Bismarck, Japanese PM Ito Hirobumi, and Northern Song reformer Wang Anshi, all bold visionaries who transformed nations. Early 20th century China desperately needed such heroes to implement destructionism and remake society. Thus, biography of Li Hongzhang serves as Liang's political call for heroic revolution. Unlike conventional biographies, this book's style is anything but conventional. Instead, Liang's writing brims with emotion and quotable insights, immersing readers emotionally. In the conclusion, Liang grieves that China's current crisis dwarfs Li Hongzhang's era. Yet now, even talents like him are nowhere to be found. Contemplating China's future makes one shudder at where it might end. For readers seriously pondering China's fate, these words strike every nerve with extraordinary impact. No wonder biography of Li Hongzhang remains a timeless classic since its publication a century ago. All right, that concludes our interpretation of Biography of Li Hongzhang. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.